guys, it's Vicky, and today I'm here with a fun little book tag. This is one that I have done in the past, but it is one that I would like to try to start to do every year because it's just kind of fun to do at the end of the year. And it is the Postscript Tag, and it was originally created by Memento Mori, so I will link his original video down below. And it just kind of asks you questions about your reading year, and they're kind of fun. And so I thought, since we have about 2 weeks left of 2020, that it would be a good time to go ahead and do this tag. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first question, which is the longest book you read this year. And for this, if I complete a little life by the end of the year, which I might. I've put a decent amount into it already. This would be my longest book. It is 814 pages long, but if I don't complete that one, then the longest book I read was North and South by John Jakes, which was 813 pages long. So close, so close. And then the second part of that question is, which book took you the longest to finish? And that again would be North and South by John Jakes. It took me, I think, like a month and a half to finish that book. It was a little bit of a slow go for me. Though I did end up enjoying the book, it was just slow and long. Question 2 is a book that you read that was outside of your comfort zone. And for that, I'm gonna go ahead and say Don't Call Us Dead by Denise Smith. This is a poetry collection, which I don't typically read poetry, so it was definitely outside of my comfort zone, but this was fabulous. This was a fabulous collection. I actually, when I read this, I listened to the audiobook as I was reading, and it was a great experience. I highly recommend doing that. Probably, like, if you can do that with any poetry, I would say do it, because it does just, I don't know, it gives you a whole different vibe. So yeah, this was an amazing collection. It made me realize I need to read more poetry, and maybe that'll be a goal for 2021, is to read more poetry. Question 3 is, how many rereads did I have in 2020? And I went back and counted, and I had 12. And that seems like a lot, but that's because I reread the Lock and Key series by Joe Hill, which is a 6-book graphic novel series. I reread 3 Goosebumps books, and then I reread Call of the Wild by Jack London, The Witches by Roald Dahl, and Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. And then kind of the next question coincides with rereads, and it is, what was my favorite reread? And no surprise, Angela's Ashes was definitely my favorite reread. This is one of my all-time favorite books, so I really enjoyed revisiting this. It had been years since I read it last, and so it was great to revisit this, and I loved the experience. Also vlogged it if you want to check that out. Question 5 is a book that I read for the first time in 2020, but look forward to reading again in the future. And this one I'm super excited to reread in the future. It is definitely one of my new favorite memoirs, and that is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. Like I said, this is a memoir, and what I loved so much about this book was the way that George M. Johnson was just so forthcoming with his life and what it was like to grow up being Black and also being gay, and just a lot of the like nuggets of information that he had to say in this book, the way that he kind of addressed his readers, because this is geared towards more of a YA audience. So a lot of the topics he discusses, I think, are great topics for kids, teens to be aware of, especially if they are gay or Black or both. And so I think that people in those groups need books like this to feel like they are being heard and being seen. And so, yeah, the writing was just, like I said, very forthcoming, very honest, oftentimes funny. There was just a lot of just wisdom and stuff in this book that I just loved, and I can't wait to revisit it sometime. The next question is my favorite short story or novella that I read in 2020, and for that, that came out of 4 Past Midnight by Stephen King, and it was the novella The Langoliers, which was about a airplane where they're on a flight from, I'm trying to remember if it was from like the West Coast to the East Coast, and at some point in the flight, most of the passengers and crew disappear, and there's only like a handful of people left on the plane. And so it's like, what happened to these people? Where did they go? Are they coming back? What's going on? What's going on down there on the ground? Because obviously like they're up in the air. What happened? And it was definitely a book or a story that that had kind of a sci-fi vibe that I don't normally gravitate towards, but I just loved this story. I thought it was super cool and unique and just kind of fun, and also kind of had some creepy bits. So yeah, it was a good time. I really loved it. The next question is a book that I read in 2020 that I would recommend to a variety of readers because it has sort of mass appeal. And for that, I'm gonna go with The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abidare, I believe is how you say it. This book, I think most people would like because it is a contemporary story about a young girl who basically she's living in Nigeria, and she is wanting to be educated, but because of her culture and some of her family pressures, family needs, she's forced to marry at a very young age, and is basically spends the book fighting that whole thing and wanting to be educated and to just be out on her own. And what I thought was brilliant about this book was the way it was written, because at the beginning of this story, what was our main character's name? I cannot remember what her name was. Oh, I think it was Aduni, I can't remember. But at the beginning of the book, the way that the book is written, it's from her perspective, and she is not educated because she has been forced to quit school, and even when she was in school, it was very sporadic and things like that. And so the writing, her voice, the way that she talks to you, the reader, reflects that. And as she goes on in life and becomes more educated, becomes more aware of her situation, and becomes just more assertive and everything, her voice literally changes, and you see that reflected in the writing, and it was brilliant. I loved that. And so it's a very good story just about kind of like girl power, and yeah, I loved this and would recommend it to anybody, especially though people that like contemporary. So the next question is kind of the same as the last one, except it's, what is a book you would recommend that you liked but would only recommend to certain people because it maybe doesn't appeal to everyone? And for that, I'm gonna say Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, which I haven't yet reviewed on my channel, but it's coming, I promise, it's coming. And the reason I would say that though about this book, I loved this book, absolutely loved this book. However, there are things about it that I think not everybody would like. First of all, it is a longer book. I know there are people out there that don't like long fiction. They don't want to read, you know, a 600-page book. Okay. Also, this has a lot of, it's kind of a genre-bending book because it is part historical fiction, it's part contemporary, it's part magical realism. It has just a lot going on in it, but it all just works together. But I could see why some people wouldn't like this, especially like the magical realism elements, the kind of sort of supernatural sort of vibe it has. People might not like. And also the premise of the book, it seems like it is about this kind of murder mystery, but really it's not. It's about this boy's coming of age. And so some people might not like that either. They might go into it with different expectations. So yeah, I would recommend this to certain people, but not to everyone because it wouldn't fit some people's tastes at all. And then the last question is to just kind of reflect on the year in terms of my channel, how I think things went this year. And I think overall, in terms of channel goals, my biggest channel goal this year was to try my best to upload 2 times a week. And for the most part, I did that consistently. There were a few times throughout the year where I just didn't have content. So I only put 1 video up on a week. And then of course there was the week that we lost our dog and I just was not feeling getting in front of a camera and talking about books. I was grieving, so I took a break then also, but otherwise I pretty much met that goal, and I'm pretty proud about that. Other than that though, some of my favorite videos that I did this year, I really enjoyed doing my not reading vlog where I tried not to read for a couple of days because it was a fun experiment, and I had some fun with that video. I got a little silly and it was a good time. I really enjoyed that, and it's kind of inspired me to try to do going forward, to try to do more creative vlogs where it's not just, oh, here's what I'm reading and here's what I'm doing today or whatever, to maybe kind of try to kind of steer them a certain way or challenge myself in more ways in terms of vlogging, just to kind of make them more fun and a little bit more, I don't know, creative or different. The other video I really had fun with was the 6 degrees of separation video that I did, where I went from I somehow connected The Stand to Jane Eyre and, you know, 6 degrees of separation, and that was really fun to do, and it's one that I would love to try to do again. So maybe in 2021 I'll do another round of that. That was really fun. And then the other thing that isn't maybe necessarily tied to my channel, but just to me as a creator, content creator, one of the things I'm proud of is that Bobby and I started our book club, Random Reads, on over on Goodreads, and I'm really glad we did that because I think I've always wanted to kind of have a book club and a place to discuss books, which is, I mean, the reason I started this channel, but to have it kind of where we talk about specific books and things and read things as a group, I have always wanted to do that, and so I'm glad that Bobby and I did that, and it's been fun. It's still fairly new. We started in August, so but it's going well, and I'm really glad that we decided to kind of take the leap and do that together. So yeah, I think overall it was a pretty good year in terms of my channel and just kind of my goals as a creator. Obviously the year as a whole was a bit of a challenge, and getting into my reading goals, I'm gonna do a whole separate video about that and see kind of how I did in terms of my reading goals and talk about what I want to do in 2021. So yeah, I look forward to that. But overall, I think 2020 definitely had its ups and downs, didn't it? Yeah, it did. So then the last question is just to tag people to do this tag. So if you are a content creator, or if you just are a subscriber and maybe you keep a reading journal and kind of want to fill these questions in for yourself, consider yourself tagged and go ahead and do it, and let me know down below in the comments how you would answer some of these questions because I would love to know how everybody would answer them. And yeah, I hope that 2021 is better for everybody. This was definitely an interesting year. So that is all I have for today, guys. I hope you are having a wonderful week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.